will call the meeting. It is 5:33, November 4th, day before the election. Call the meeting to order. Item number 2, public comment. Raquel, anyone?
No, there's no one.
No one? Item number 3, approval of prior minutes, October 21st, 2024. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I will.
Okay,
Make that
I'm
motion.
second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Old business, none. Moving on to new business. Architects report. Justin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the building committee. Pretty modest report this evening. Just since our last meeting, we received 25 new RFIs and 33 new submittals. The project team continues to meet regularly with Gilbane and Colliers. We have a handful of ATPs to review this evening that we'll be prepared to answer any questions on. The big effort that has occurred in the last 2 weeks is we continue to move the Playscapes, IT, and FF&E packages along. And Adam has provided some of the material to review. There's no action items tonight for this, but we are preparing to finalize those packages. So over the next several meetings, we anticipate providing some additional information with an eye towards starting our PCRs with the state prior to the holidays. So other than that, all systems go. The project team and the construction team out in the field is making great progress. If anybody's been by the site, it's a well-oiled machine out there. So kudos to the Gilbane team. We have other projects that started around the same time in the office. This project is shining in comparison to some of the other ones that we have in the field. So,
yeah, with that introduction, I think Robert, you'll take the you'll
Thank
take
you,
your part. Yeah. This is being recorded, remember.
I was gonna say this is recorded, right? Yeah.
Thank you, Justin, for those kind words. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Boop, boop, boop. Oh. All right, hopefully you can see it. So what we've kind of really been focusing on over the last 2 to 3 weeks, a couple items. One, little outside the normal progress update is just a heads up. We did have some students from the high school come through just in the last week or two, and we were able to kind of introduce them to some of the trade foremen, and then we were able to take them for a little tour of the job site, kind of for students that were interested in the construction trades in the industry. So I think that was well received. It was kind of interesting to meet with the students and get some feedback from them and get their perspective on the construction industry and what they were looking to do and what jobs they were looking to potentially investigate as they moved on from high school. So I think that was a good little field trip and program that we put together.
Robert, can I just cut in real quick and say thank you so much for that. We have really been trying to expand our offerings for career and tech ed and technical careers and trades instead of just being college prep. And we've had a lot of success there. And we have an award-winning career and tech ed department. But programs like this are phenomenal. And I know the kids really enjoyed it. And I understand that there's going to be more of this going on with some of the architecture interested kids, students coming to see Tecton and also the site. So thank you all very much. That's amazing stuff.
Anytime. Glad we can help. And I think those next tours will be coming up in December after early December. So we'll have another round. The Tecton team, and then we'll have more students coming back for the construction management side and the trade side.
And any future Masons, Robert? Did you pick up any volunteers?
Nah, I don't think there was anyone interested in me.
We tried them out with a trial. We didn't have takers. So.
Well, yeah. You gotta be
The,
born in the trade, I think, unfortunately.
running
They saw
the
the winter coming and they want the interior trades are a hot commodity.
Yeah, exactly. And suddenly a lot of electricians were discovered.
Exactly.
So just some other good notes, progress notes to touch on was we did mill and pave Green Hill Road on Saturday. So we addressed that on Saturday to try to avoid impacting the bus, the school drop off and pickup. So we ended up doing that on Saturday. They were done by about 2 o'clock, and I driving down Green Hill Road that afternoon, I can attest that they did a good job, and the road is a lot smoother. So hopefully we get some positive feedback from the town on that. But that was a good one to get done and off the docket before the winter time. Outside of that, the other one that's kind of offsite related is Eversource should be coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks to install the poles that are required for the permanent power. So that would be a big milestone. It's expected before Thanksgiving. So potentially at our next building committee in 2 weeks from now, hopefully we have some news that the poles are in and that they're starting to pull that 3-phase power we need from Green Hill Road. Getting back to the actual building construction, as you can see here, I tried to show you a photo of the brick progress to date as of Friday. So this is the north end of the building. So down here is stair 2 and where like kind of the storage room is. Our Gilbane trailer would be at the far end of the site from here on Mungertown. Mungertown Road would be on my right. So we have basically 2 elevations cruising along on A. We've actually started wrapping around to the 3rd side of A, and it's a little hard to tell, and I don't want to jump around too much because it sometimes gets a little quirky. But we actually started the AWB for the area B, the 2-story. We sprayed the CMU block, and we're prepping to start mobilizing down to the lower level for the brick on the exterior at B2. So the goal is still wrap up in mid-December on the exterior brick. We're going to push the mason aggressively. He will need the man up to do that. But we've been having constant conversations to get them to do so. Just while we're still parked here, this section above the windows, this is an area where there's metal panels on the exterior. Those will start next week. And then about a week after the metal panels, we'll be looking to start the actual window storefront installation. So we don't have all the glass, so there will be some temp protection required in these windows after the frames go in. But by the end of November, you should start seeing the metal panels and the windows going on this area A, kind of following the sequence of the brick as well. And then just lastly, I'll jump inside quickly. So we're looking down in the cafeteria. If I did a time lapse from, hopefully it is. Yeah, see, okay. Hopefully this comes back, but oh boy, I accidentally clicked where I didn't want to click. But inside, basically we started framing on area B as well, both upper level and then lower level. We have drywall going in some of the corridors on upper level of B, which is good because that's helping us with that main ductwork rough-in. And then the last thing, which I don't even think you would be able to see from this, but we did start the block in the gym. So we have the north and the east walls of the gymnasium starting on block. So those are big. So the key inside is kind of getting those block walls up, continuing with framing, and then sheet rocking in key areas so that we can support the ductwork and the MEP installations. I'll let Adam touch on a little bit on his section, but we did have a couple site visits to review the MEP rough-in locations. And so we've been kind of going through and doing our little benchmark installations with the design team on those as well, kind of make sure we're all on the same page. So we've been doing that over the last 3 weeks, and it seems to be going well and providing some clarity and kind of heading off some rework that we might have wanted to try to avoid in the future. So And with that, I'll open up and see if there's any questions or comments, and I'll stop sharing my black screen.
Any update on the switchgear and the DOAS units?
Yep. So the DOAS unit is scheduled to ship to the site, actually to the rigger right after Thanksgiving. So we were anticipating that the week before Thanksgiving. It looks like that's now the week after Thanksgiving, which overall really isn't, really won't affect us, overall schedule at all. And then the switch gear, we actually had the ATSs delivered to the site today from, Consolidated Electric. And we're still anticipating the final pieces of the gear to ship right before Thanksgiving. So we'll continue to on them. We've been reaching out almost every week now as it gets closer, and the date has been sticking. So
Great. Any other questions for Robert or Nick? Do you want to add anything?
No, I think Rob had it all. Thank you.
Got it. Moving on to Adam, continuing on the OPM update.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll quickly talk about the MEP rough-ins, and that kind of segues a bit into the furniture component, which is the main bulk of what I wanted to just quickly run through tonight. Nothing too crazy. As Justin mentioned, there's no votes on furniture tonight, but the intent is this is sort of the preamble meeting before future meetings where we do have votes. With regard to the MEP rough-ins and staff walks, we did have a couple of opportunities to have Becky and Gail with school administration, and then the subsequent visit from Becky Frost, the principal, and some teaching staff, just to look at a mocked up classroom, just so they understood where, here's where the millwork's going to be, here's where the desks generally intended to be laid out, whiteboards, Promethean smartboard, and here's where outlets will be, and kind of look through that before Gilbane really starts taking off in the interior, because it's really one of the critical components now as we switch from the outside to the inside, is kind of knocking through the rooms, getting things done, getting the walls done, and then start to eventually close things up and move into the more building systems element towards the end of the job. So that was just, it's one of those sort of unsung coordination components that can be really important to happen right now in construction, so that way you don't get too far down the road and then people walk into the building and had no understanding of what a room might look like or where the desks might be or that kind of thing. So that was a good couple of site visits there. And baked into one of those visits was also just a quick tour of the building, but also looking at some of the administration spaces with regard to furniture. So I'll screen share here, but the notion is that, as Justin mentioned, there are sort of three packages that are being developed right now for the last bit of sort of contracting for the building, if you will. The furniture and maintenance equipment package, the AVIT package, and then the playgrounds equipment package. We've been having a number of meetings for all three of them with various stakeholders, largely BOE staff and administration is the critical pieces of those. But within that, there's different players that get brought in. So, for example, when I show some of the playground components here, there's a focus on accessibility inclusion that was heavy emphasis on those playground equipment selections versus when we're talking about individual rooms for staffing, having a presentation meeting and then having administration go back and be able to talk with the end users and confirm what needs to be put in place for each of the furniture equipment components. So with that, I'll just flash a couple of things that are sort of representative of where we're at on the screen, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about procurement, budget, and timing at the end of this. So sharing my screen now, and all of this is in the packet, so anyone wanting to take a look at it later can do so. But by and large, the end deliverable for each of these packages will typically be a set of drawings outlining what the scope is, where it is, what type it is. Bid packages like we had with the project manual that Gilbane sought with the subcontractors, except these big packages will be specific to furniture or playgrounds or what have you. And then the various other state required documents and cost estimates and all that. So as we've been going through the meetings with led by TechDon and their consulting teams, and the school administration and town staff as appropriate. Like I said, the end deliverables, the target of mine is going to be the drawing. So walking through the drawings, not just at a drawing level. For example, this is a furniture layout plan that's been updated, but going through all the various pieces of furniture and equipment. So here's just some excerpts of the type of things that we've been looking at, but looking through chair options, talking through what's readily available and an economical option in the state contract versus maybe some other options that might have some different functionality. And then going through and taking the notes and the feedback from the people that will be using the building, about types of chairs, numbers of chairs, how the legs want to work. Do they want to stack? Do they not want to stack? Have they used that type of equipment before or that brand before and are familiar with it and like the quality? Going through individual options about, is there a peg to put the backpacks on or not? Are there casters or not for each piece of equipment that'll eventually be part of the package that will go before school building committee and board of education for ultimate approval here shortly. Going through each room layout. So this pre-K room, I believe it was this exact one was mocked up for that MEP Ruffin that Rob was mentioning. So there was a little bit of tape on the floor here for where the desk was going to be, tape on the floor for the cubbies, and kind of outlining what the room will look like while obviously it's still in construction. It's a little hard to visualize when you're seeing metal studs and insulation, but to get the lay of the land early as we're doing both of these parallel efforts of construction and then the furniture package. Going through not just one room, but each type of room. How does a rug in one room want to work versus another room want to work? With the students in mind, the age groups, that kind of thing. Again, obviously all components of the building are considered, media rooms included, as well as support spaces. I picked this one out specifically because you'll see a change order later for a swing support. For the structural component to be installed, that came out of the furniture meeting where talking about the OTPT, a swing wanted to be installed. So that kind of tied hand in hand with the construction ongoing to make sure that a piece of it was effectively equipment that Gilbane will not be providing, has the infrastructure in place, so that way it can be installed once we get there, and it's not a last minute change as we're going through this. And then also some things that are not as flashy, teacher workrooms, and we're kind of tables and storage utility things. All this is baked into the furniture package. In a similar vein, the playgrounds are being reviewed. So the other two images weren't as clean cut, but again, there are plans, but there are also going through the individual components and renderings to see what the equipments might look like. So there are a number of changes made from sort of the designer's first stab at it. I can say that this project just has a big focus on ensuring that there's a good representative piece of emphasis on, like I said, accessibility and inclusivity, not just we have to meet code requirements about how to ensure that there's the types of equipment that meet the goals, but also thinking outside that and thinking to whether it be swapping out a piece of equipment that might be more user-friendly for someone, maybe in a wheelchair or what have you, but also just students that have alternative thoughts about what playground wants to be. So for example, I don't know if one of the renderings is here, but having a shaded area that maybe tables could go under for students that don't want to play in the playground, but want to sit and talk with their friends or play a game or something at the table. So it was a good exercise in trying to provide, at least my perception from having heard the conversation from the administration, trying to provide a wide spectrum of options that don't just like check the box on accessibility and inclusivity, but really cater to what the students at the school and at the programs would want and need across all three playgrounds. So again, these draft renderings I did include in the packet with a whole sort of color options that are currently being reviewed, but that's sort of the flavor of where we're at in terms of selecting these final pieces of equipment for ultimate package development. And then last but not least, but probably not as exciting for screen sharing, are the IT components, which we're working with Town IT on this now. And basically it's there will be drawings in that, but it's going through and identifying quantities and locations of everything from switches from your network to how many patch cables do we need to order and install to make sure that they can be plugged in. A big component to this package right now is confirming who's and what's ball in court. And so we've got some final meetings and coordination to do on that. Obviously, some components are baked into Gilbane's contract with regard to the back end thing that goes in the walls, the wires and connections and that. But when it comes to this package, how is it getting installed? Who's plugging it in? How is it being configured at an actual IT technical level? There may need to be some additional vendor support just to be able to provide this based on capability and availability of the staffing and the actual systems being installed in the building. So we're working through that, but that's ultimately what's being fleshed out for the IT package. Any questions on that before I get to budget and timing and procurement and all that? Seeing a lot of shaking heads, so I'll keep going. In terms of the procurement method, by and large, the intent that we've been talking with the administrators and developing the scope is to maximize what can be bought off of state contract, just so that way scope is known, the quantities and pricing can all be kind of laid out, and the estimate, but before not just you all, but the state, it's as close to what the actual price would be as we can achieve. There'll be some items that do need to go out for public bid, but the hope and intent is that those are fairly minimal to reduce not just risk, but also ensure that the town's knows what it's buying and we can buy what we need to for the project and not have a lot of ambiguity that sometimes come along with the bid process. We're working with some of the vendors where there has been some changes to some of the state contracts in the past I'd say year or two in terms of procurement limits. So we're looking to outside consortiums. The big one is for the playground, where the state contract has reduced some of the available limits. So working through not just with the vendors, but with town finance. Some of the topics need to be brought up before Board of Selectmen, but the intent, usually not atypically with these types of projects, is to maximize what you can on state contract, just because it is a known value. I did mention that there's the potential need for some additional support on the IT AV install side of things. That might be something that we need to sole source if it needs to be a particular vendor, but again, we're working through that. The hope is that we can minimize the amount of sole source requests needing to go into the state. Right now, I think we're tracking just one for sure with the Promethean boards based on the size of that scope, but minimizing the amount of sort of, like I said, ambiguity that goes before the state to try to expedite that process. The state's been very busy as of late, and we want to make sure that we can try to get in, do what we need to do, work with the state, get the approvals, and get these projects procured, or these scope items procured, to then get them installed. For AVIT would be in March is when it would try to start, and then the other items in the summer, right before school opens. So again, all things we're working through, but that's the kind of last mile stuff that we need to know before we go, not just for these approvals with the initial approvals with the town, but the state's going to ask these questions, and we'll need to have answers and have a clear plan in place before they'll authorize the project to go to contract and or bid. In terms of budget, we are looking at a small overage from the original budget as set back in the beginning of the project, but it was late 2020, I think, is when it was developed, 2021. So the budget for all FF&E packages was just over 2.7 million. And right now the estimates are coming in at just over 2.9. So right around 10%, maybe a little less if my math is correct there. That number has come down from the initial estimates after the first wave of furniture selections and playground selections and all that. So it's been a good collaborative effort with school administration about what's needed, what brands are needed, what equipment's needed to get that number to come down. And if you recall, the construction budgets were something north of 20% over budget when we were going through those lengthy value engineering exercise that I'm sure we all loved back in schematic design and design development and all that. So same type of process has happened here, but the intent was to get it down before anything was presented. So I know that as part of projecting out, I had thought that it might be a little worse than 10% just based on escalation for construction was so bad, maybe FF&E would be worse, but all the teams collectively have done a good job of keeping that number down to, like I said, about 200,000 or so overage from what we originally had budgeted. And then timing. So right now, the 3 packages are, like I said, getting wrapped up. The intent is to have the first wave of board approvals, which follows the same process like we did for construction. School Building Committee and Board of Education would occur first, and that's an approval of the documents and package to go to the state to go for their the state's final plan for performance review meeting, the PCR meeting. Those would be targeted for late November or in December. We may have one round where it's just we look at all 3 packages and vote on those. We may pull the AVIT package early. We'll see how that works as we work to close up the package, but that's the initial time frame for this body and also the Board of Education to do that initial vote. Then we would go to the state. Those would be targeted for December, January. And then presuming that the state gives the approvals on the timeline that we would traditionally expect, we would look for contracting in January, February. So that would be the second round of approvals. SBC would vote to award the project on the basis of the within the project funds, and then Board of Selectmen would approve the contract because they requested that these 3 packages go back to Board of Selectmen for final approval. So to kind of give I'm giving the preamble here tonight on these. We're doing the similar type of thing for Board of Education on their meeting on the 12th. Again, nothing lengthy, just want to make sure everyone's refreshed on what's going on. Still working on Board of Selectmen timing. That might be the 12th, that might not. Coordinating that out with the first Selectwoman's office now. But that's overall the timing and cadence and the scope of what we're looking at here as we look to wrap these up. So I've been talking for a while now. Any questions, concerns, comments? All right, perfect.
So Adam, the overage would come out of our contingency?
That's correct. So I know that we have the contingency reports that sometimes get issued on to the SBC as part of the email string. If you recall, there's the contingency, how much that was budgeted, how much is used, planned, and whatnot. That overages is already contemplated for. Obviously, it's not contracted, but when I had that column saying that it's something that's being considered and tracked, that's already being tracked as part of that value.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Or are we going to move to the next item?
The only other thing I had, Graham, was something that came up today. It's a smaller item, but it's an email that will follow up, and I wanted to bring it up here just quickly. If you recall back from the value engineering effort, there was a host of custom wall graphics that went around the building, and the project cut 50% of them as a decent cost saving measure prior to going out to bid. Right now, the project team is working with school administration and a couple of you on an email string with regard to what those images actually want to look like. Is it an otter? Is it a beach? Is it a what have you, right? There was some good discussion about potentially soliciting photos from either townspeople or potentially students or what have you to represent Madison within the photos within the building, and that work is still ongoing. There was some, again, it just came across the wire 2 hours ago or so to me, about that there are a lot of images and or a lot of potential locations, and maybe there's not enough images to go around to fit it. So there may be an offline discussion amongst the design portion of it to maybe reduce the number of images, just so that way they're still targeted, they're still good, but to free up a little bit more room for student work, and then provide a smaller subset of photos that are better images, rather than trying to find the last couple images that may not be as good. So again, no decision point here. I just that email will be coming out, and it may result in a slight change of scope that will get codified in a change order. Not a ton. I think there's like a request for maybe eliminating 4 or 5 panels or something like that. Nothing egregious, but again, because it was a big talking point in this meeting, and it just came up, and this is a timely subject to try to wrap up this photo selection process. Just want to let you all know that that's something that might be solicited for future input. But anyway, that's the end point of that. So anything else, Graham, I can move on to ATPs if you'd like.
Yeah, just on the photo stuff, I think some of the selectmen suggest connected with the official keeper of the Town of Madison website about images, and she's got a long history of photos. So I think they're trying to connect her database with Tecton and get suitably local images, as opposed to Cape Cod National Seashore images. Things that are clearly, as most people who have ever checked the Madison, the unofficial Madison website, pictures of beaches are no shortage on the Facebook page. So as I said, I think every third image is a sunset over a Madison beach. So people know what our beaches look like. So like, I don't get into aesthetics, but my only request is the beaches are geologically and geomorphologically correct for a coastal embayment versus a national seashore. But I may be proven incorrect on that, but everyone knows what the gazebo looks like on a sunset. So we gotta have at least one gazebo in the building somewhere, but I digress. I'll let you continue, Adam, on your.
No, and I almost want to make sure to bring it up just because it's starting to engage a lot of the Madison community, and I didn't want the SBC to be the last ones to hear about potential discussion about this, since it's ongoing. So that's why I bring it up
It
here.
can be a little subjective, as George and Woody will advise. We spent 1 year in 52 meetings at least talking about some graphics for the library that ultimately ended up crashing and burning at the end. But so we still have scars for talking about the various that stuff. So hopefully we can avoid those problems with this one, but I'm sure we will. So moving on.
So for item number 5, we have 4 ATPs up for review and potential vote tonight. So again, I'll run through all of them, and then we can go from there. First item up is ATP 43 for 2509. This is one of 2 change orders this evening that are related to roof insulation. This work was complete and being tracked on a time and materials basis. The reason it was completed because the roof, as you can imagine, happens extremely quickly, and you want to get the insulation down, roofing membrane down. So both this and the subsequent ATP I'll mention here in a moment were for additional areas where the roof insulation was needed to be added in order to prevent ponding water at the building, just as they were coordinating between the slope structure and the final installed condition at the roofing. So this item was ATP 43, and then jumping ahead 2 numbers to ATP 46 was a larger area at both sides of the pop-up roof where some insulation needed to be added to provide a sloped area or a cricket to get the water to drain. Justin, you want to add anything to that, or does that basically cover it?
No, that pretty much covers it. These were some areas that the majority of the strategy was to slope the steel at the roof. We had a couple of areas that was unable to be done via design, so we needed to add into the project this tapered insulation.
Yeah, kudos for catching it now rather than we notice a puddle after the fact and, everyone says, how could that happen? So thank you
Correct.
for picking that up.
Yeah, it was Soaktown. It was a very
Yeah.
good team out here, good foreman out here that was pretty adept at picking up stuff like that. So we're very fortunate.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, we've all had roofs that didn't quite drain right, and everyone's like, well,
Hard to address later on, that's for sure.
yeah, exactly. And you talk about it for years later on, but
Moving on to ETP 45 for 4819. This is the thing I mentioned or alluded to before with the swing in the pre-K OT-PT room. So as part of occupational therapy, physical therapy, there's in schools a lot now. You have your swing. I believe they already have one existing at, I forget which school it is that they're potentially looking to bring over or purchase new, but regardless, there needed to be some support steel installed to support that. So this is the change order to include that support steel to hang the swing. And then the final ETP, number 48, for 1866. This is for a metal stud framed enclosure around some plumbing in the kitchen. I think this was just born out of some of the last minute coordination between the kitchen equipment and the plumbing, and there were just exposed pipes that needed to be concealed within the kitchen space and have the FRP applied and all that. Is there anything else to that one, Justin, or was that the thrust of it?
Nope, we had a column within the area and some utility piping that we made the recommendation to encapsulate that within the column enclosure. So this is a straight material and labor increase to that particular enclosure.
That's all the ATPs. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I do have these as draft motions, which I'm sharing on the screen now.
any questions for Adam before we ask for someone to volunteer to hearing none, I'll ask for a volunteer to
I'll read it.
thank you, Sharon.
No problem. Motion to approve ATP 43 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $2,509 for the tapered roof insulation between the courtyard and the pop-up roof per RFI 207. Can we read them all? And just do one vote, or are we gonna vote in between?
As long as Woody votes seconds off. Well, let's just second as we go along. I think that's we
Okay,
have a second.
he's muted, but he seconds.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Unanimous?
to.
Yep.
Oh, ready? Motion to approve ATP 45 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $4,819 for additional structural steel supports for the OTPT swing per bulletin 22.
Do we have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 46 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $10,725 for the additional tapered roof insulation adjacent to the pop-up roof per RFI 209.
Have a second?
That.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bring us home, Sharon.
Okay, motion to approve ATP 48 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $1,866 for a metal framed plumbing enclosure in the kitchen per RFI 146.
We have
I'll
a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to that's Adam, you have anything else? You have any no invoices this month, this period?
Invoices will be the second meeting of the month.
Perfect. Moving on to item number 6, public comment. Raquel, do we have any comment?
We have Katie Stein from Board of Finance. I'm not sure if she's looking to make a comment or not.
Raise your hand, Katie, if you're inclined. No hand?
I don't think, no hands.
Okay, congratulations. I'm sure that's good. I'm sure she's got plenty of other things to worry about in the next 24 hours. Moving on to number 7, remarks. Any remarks? Anyone, any questions for
Yeah,
the,
I have a
Yep.
comment for us. Assuming that there are contingency funds left over, I'd like to suggest that we look into the photovoltaic system at a reduced size. If obviously we won't have enough to do the whole system, but the current system design is for 550 kilowatts, which will do basically all of our electric generation costs. One thought would be, why don't we put up, as part of the building contract, why don't we put up maybe half of that with provision to make sure that we can add the other half as soon as is reasonable. That would take care of 50% of our generation costs. So we'd have an immediate reduction in the cost of electricity, and it would be within the construction budget. And, you know, we could do something like that for approximately half what I told you before the overall would be. And as soon as we know that something like that was available, we could maybe move forward on that. It saves so much money to do it as part of our construction.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Woody. And actually, we're still looking at what makes sense to do when, you know, in terms of we're penciling out the contingency. You know, every month that goes by, we have a better handle on the contingency. So we're still hoping possibly to get it included, the entire thing included in the project, if everything breaks just right. Obviously, there's other factors, consideration. As you know, the Board of Selectmen have asked us to let them know before we make any significant, cost spending of the contingency, the remaining contingency beyond the 3.5 we've committed to return already. So, and then we're also discussing the best way to procure that, whether we do it after construction, but do it as soon as possible, but let the building be completed for warranty reasons, things like that. So there's a lot of variables, but yeah, we're gonna do whatever we can, and that my desire would be to procure it through the project, through the project funding. I mean, there's also questions of whether that's, whether that was in the original referendum number or not, and things like that. So there's a lot of variables, but we're working. I think we're committed, and the town's committed to try to do as much as possible to get it incorporated.
And I appreciate that very much. I just thought, if you knew that there were options, if we had half of that sum available to spend on PV, that would certainly be a reasonable thing to do, and it would not complicate finishing that system when the time comes.
Understood. So yeah, we're looking at it. We're keeping all the options open, and that
Right.
would be the most desirable one to do it. And I think in the rebates, I think we're doing a whole building rebate with Eversource, right? So I think we have to own that. Part of that deal is owning the system, right? So I think there's a couple $100,000 in addition to the, whatever IRA funding we're pursuing. There's still a couple $100,000 in the whole building rebate program too. That
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's not so much the money, it's the allocation of the money within the referendum is the problem that we're working very hard to make that happen. So I know Peter and his team is also looking at that very closely, and there's a lot of moving parts, but
Got it. Thank
we
you.
promised you net zero billing, Woody, if you came on the building committee. So I haven't forgotten that promise.
If anything comes up on the warranty side, anything else, just let us know. We're happy to chase it down with Silktown and John's Manville. But
yeah, I know we've got a solar ready building in quotes,
yeah,
ready. So it should, we should have, the building should be built to cover any contingency for solar ready, to make it ready.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and from our perspective, the best, I guess the most financially responsible way to probably buy that, or the cheapest way to buy that, would probably be to bid that out separately to contractors that specialize in PV work, and not run it through our contract.
Yeah,
we'd be happy to.
Yeah,
outside of ours. So using project funds certainly, but not using us to do it would probably be the way to go.
Understood. Yeah, like I said, it's mostly design build anyway. All the expertise is really in the people that do it for the specialty firms that do it.
Yep, exactly.
The racking stuff it changes weekly, it seems like, the solar panels, whatever the market's saying, so.
Yep.
Even if we did it through, even if we wanted to try to do it through, we do a design build turnkey anyway, so there wouldn't be much value having you mark it up, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly our point. Yep.
Got it. Okay, but that's, any other comments or anything else you want to add, Woody?
No, thank you. That's great.
Let's see, so hearing any other comments, I know everyone will have a late night tomorrow, so we'll call it early today. So would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll do that.
We have a second? What do you want to bring us home?
Sure, I'll second that.
Make the minutes easy. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Night.
Take care, everybody.
Seeing you.